Hi everyone, I'm Mikhail Chung, and I won the American Rocketry Challenge of 2025 and also the International Rocketry Challenge at the Paris Air Show. In this video, I'll go over how me and my team did it. There's going to be a lot of information that I'll be going over quickly, and I don't want to keep you guys waiting, so let's get right into it. So first, I'll talk about my journey. I started model rocketry in 2nd grade when I attended one of my Cub Scouts' annual rocketry launch, and I became more interested in it during the pandemic since it was a fun outdoor activity that I enjoyed with my family. I was the National Rocketry Champion in 2023 and 2025, and I'm on the U.S. team competing in the World Space Modeling Cup in Serbia later this year. I also won the American Rocketry Challenge and the International Rocketry Challenge with my team, earning over $20,000 in prize money. So I have experience with model rocketry, I've been doing it for a decent amount of time, and I want to share my journey and passion with all of you. So 3 years ago, I decided to bring my passion for rocketry to my fellow scouts, and I started an ARC team which I could share my passion through. I call us the Troop 74 Rocketeer, since, well, that was a troop we were all part of. For those of you who don't know, the American Rocketry Challenge, also known as ARC, is a middle and high school rocketry competition where teams have to create a model rocket that carries 2 eggs to target altitude and be in the air for a target time. Now, to start off, the main idea I had with all my designs is to create a rocket that is both accurate and consistent. It doesn't matter if you can reach a perfect score if you can only do it once. The main design decisions I'll be talking about in this video are about my launch tower, airframe, and motor. So, if you're at Nationals, you may have noticed the custom launch tower that I made. With the railguides that I used previously on my first ARC rocket for this year's challenge, there was a problem that the rocket faced called racking. It's when there's a small misalignment in the railguide that causes the rocket to veer off course. To fix this, I decided to make a launch tower for the rocket that eliminated racking and also parasite drag. No launch guide would be needed, the rocket would be more symmetric, it can go up straighter, and have a more predictable flight. This idea stemmed from my experience in FAI and NRC rocketry, which commonly uses launch towers. This ended up working very well for me at Nationals since it was windy and the tall launch tower helped the rocket go straighter. There was a lot of questions that I received about my launch tower, so I'll go over it in more detail with a later video. So now I'll talk about my airframe and more specifically the fins. Originally I used something like this. It's a pretty standard setup with the BT-80 tube on the top and BT-70 tube on the bottom. I also use basswood fins in a vacuum form position from apogee in the middle. I also decided to use a foam nose cone that absorbed the force on landing rather than a plastic nose cone. So in the second rocket, I changed the design to have through-roll fins. The through-roll fin design was inspired by high-power rocketry because I wanted the rocket to be durable and strong for many flights. The through-roll fins go through the outer tube and connect to the inner tube, whilst also connecting to the centering rings. This design was more directly inspired by the Zephyr rocket from Apogee. To glue the winner fins onto the rocket body, I used a fin guide so I can align and glue the fins on very easily. Then finally, I designed this 3D print fin can. I noticed that the fin alignment and size had a great effect on the rocket's stability, performance, and predictability. So for my final rocket, I used a fin size and rocket balance of a 1.8 caliber stability. The 3D printing is much more accurate than gluing, so fin alignment is much more controllable. I did this 3D design in the Fusion 360 software. This fin can needed to be lightweight since it is in the back, and strong so it can be durable. This method that I use isn't the traditional 3D print technique of designing a 3D fin can and using regular 3D print infills. The design I use mimics the I-beam structure, which is a commonly used technique in construction. It's also printed in phase mode, meaning a 0% infill and also 1 well thick. I did a science research project that I entered into a science fair going over the strength testing and material efficiency of this design technique of using I-beams and phase mode. For the final rocket that I designed, I wanted it to be modular. This means that it can be used in many weather conditions and circumstances. The 2 main parts that were made modular were the motor mount and altimeter bay. I had each in different weights that I could change out to change the rocket's weighting and balance. This way, I could keep the rocket balanced and also modular. These parts were also designed in Fusion 360. Additionally, the final rocket used an F27-8 motor from Aerotech. Looking back, it probably wasn't the best choice as it didn't give it high enough initial thrust for a very straight boost. However, it was very accurate for the rocket. I looked at the tested and certified stats on thrustcurve.org for this motor and also all the other motors to see which one had the least deviation between motors. The F27 motor proved to be very accurate to the simulation as the flights would accurately model the simulation predictions. The final things that I want to add are the designs that made the rocket easier and simpler to use. First is the egg holder, which looks like this. I used a BT-80 cover from Apogee and foam egg holders from Apogee also to make this. I noticed that after a good flight, taking out the eggs was a whole other challenge. So this makes it easier. I also decided to use a nylon rotofill parachute. This parachute is a nylon parachute that rotates on a swivel and has holes cut to make it spin. This made sure that the rocket landed close to the launch pad and not off the field. So with that, ARC Nationals, the first launch scored 16 points with an altitude of 799 feet and a time of around 42 seconds. The second launch scored 15.84 with an altitude of 750 feet and a time of around 40 seconds. So later on for IRC, I added rail buttons to the rocket so it can launch with a launch rail. The rail buttons eliminated the direction that the rocket can rack in since they were circular. So at IRC, the launch scored 31 points with an altitude of 734 feet and a time of around 42 seconds.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
I had a great time meeting everyone at Nationals and Internationals, and I want to thank everyone who helped me along my journey. The last message that I want to send to all of you is that the rocketry community is very helpful. During my journey, not only this 2025 ARC season, I was in contact with many other Rocketeers asking for help. So my message to all of you is to not be afraid, to reach out, and to ask questions. This is my email, Discord, Instagram, and LinkedIn. DM me if you guys have any questions. I hope you guys found this video very helpful, and I will see you guys in the next one.